Episode 8, Things We Hate About Star Wars.
Welcome to the Visionary Variety Podcast, where we cover cool stuff like photo, video, film, books, and technology. So, switch on your brain and enjoy the show.
Thanks for joining us this week on another episode of the Visionary Variety Podcast. I am one of the hosts, Daniel Grove. We've got Nate Gunn with us.
Hey, everybody.
And Angela Brock.
Hey.
Awesome. So we are really excited to be bringing you these episodes every week. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, just make sure to do that so you don't miss any new episodes. We post them every morning on Monday of each week. We're trying to build a new community, a family of like-minded people that love the same stuff that we talk about here. And as you can tell, it's quite a variety. Photography, graphics, nerdy stuff, comics, superheroes. So if you're into any of those subjects, make sure to subscribe. And whenever you love a post that you listen to, share it. Why don't you? To kind of get the word out and help spread the news. So thanks again for listening. And Nate, why don't you tell us about this episode?
So, as the title says, things we hate about Star Wars. And it pains me to say that, but there are things in each episode that I don't like.
What?
I know. But we're going to talk about some news items. So, Daniel, how about you get us started with the news segment?
Yeah, so the first thing I want to bring up with us is the new Infinity Wars trailer. Wow.
Yay!
It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Super cool. You guys notice anything interesting that stood out to you?
Well, I'm still wondering where the last stone is coming from. I mean, they still haven't shown that, right? Not that I noticed. Yep. And also,
they're really holding off on that soul stone.
I know. I think they're just really wanting that to be revealed in the movie itself and not give it away, which is smart. And I appreciate that. And I guess, I don't know. The only other thing I mentioned, I'm like, what are they doing to Doctor Strange? I hope he ends up okay, because he looks like he's not doing so well there. He's getting, interrogated.
The acupuncture gone wrong. Really painful looking.
It doesn't look...
Thanos acupuncture.
They'll tell us about the other stone in Infinity Wars 2.
Probably.
Gosh, maybe.
Freaking Disney's going to hold on and leave us hanging for another year and be like, why? We waited 10 years and
that
it's
is the whole plot of the first movie is that they're just searching for the Soul Stone.
Oh my gosh.
No. All the images we've ever seen of Thanos with the movies is he's only ever had the blue and the purple stone, which is a time stone, the Tesseract, and the Power Stone, right?
Yeah.
So we only see 2 stones ever. He's never, in the art, they show all 6, but that's just like the art for the whole, Thanos thing. Mm-hmm. But in the movie scenes, he's never had any more than 2. And they've got Doctor Strange, obviously, cornered with needles, and he's got the green time stone on him. Yeah. So that's another stone right there. Yeah. And we do see the Mind Stone being extracted from Vision in one of the shots. So I don't know. There could be a part 2, but I've heard people disagree. They said that there is going to be an Avengers 4, but it's not a Thanos movie.
Well, I've seen stuff even just on it's not the best source ever, but on Wikipedia, they just say Infinity Wars Part 2 on there. So
yeah, I seem to remember that being mentioned way early on, but then it just disappeared. And I kind of think that it's the marketing of Disney to not ever mention a part 2, so that part 1, which is all we know about, is going to have a cliffhanger or lead into part 2 naturally and make more money. Yeah. This is a really epic climax. Yeah. How could they possibly do this epic of a climax from 18 movies prior in one movie?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
No.
It should be a trilogy, honestly. But
interesting, something that you said about the stones is in the beginning when you see his hand, he only has a few on his what it looks like, I could be wrong, but it looks like his pointer finger and his middle finger. Yeah. And then when he's at the very end and throughout many scenes, you only see those stones. Now you see him put Vision on the ground and extract but you don't see him put it on his hand. Well, at least I didn't see that. And then the newer trailer, the trailer 2, Captain America is facing off with Thanos, and you only see the 2 on his knuckles. So it's does he actually get all of them? That I know that'd be a weird plot, but does Thanos get all of them?
Yeah, it doesn't look like it, but he's got the green and the yellow at hand, but not on his hand. It's really strange. They're just, I don't know, maybe it's just the art of making a trailer. They're really drawing it out. But
I bet you Wakanda has the last stone.
That's what I thought, but they said the director, writer, whatever of the movie said they didn't want to include it in the movie, but doesn't mean it could be there. Maybe it's in the middle of the vibranium.
But Wakanda is very involved in this one. like very involved.
It is.
So
Yeah,
it makes
this
you
is the battleground.
It makes you think it's there, and Thanos is like, I have my shovel.
Yeah.
You know,
ready to start digging. Yeah, some things that I noticed real quick. That basically Thanos shows up at Earth through a wormhole, like this circle opens up in the sky, and his circle ship comes out of that. So I'm wondering if he gets the Space Stone or the Tesseract out in space from Loki, because remember he grabbed it at the end of Ragnarok.
Loki.
He's in the basement. He's like running through. Oh, hey, Tesseract. You know he did not grab that. He had to have. He's Loki. Mm-hmm. And there was a gauntlet in there, and I don't know if that was actually the Infinity Gauntlet. You remember that? There was an Infinity Gauntlet down there.
Yeah, but
I
thought he's like fake, and then someone knocked it over.
Yeah, it could be a fake or a recreation, but it could be the real thing. But either way, so I think Thanos gets the Space Stone out of space. He uses it to teleport to Earth, and he's here now. Some other things I noticed was the Iron Man suit got that new thruster, his like double feet thruster.
Yeah,
that was
finally.
super cool. Just things are literally being created out of thin air on his suit, which is really hinting at nanobot technology. Yeah, some other things I noticed was that Shuri is using a normal hologram. What happened to the Wakandan hologram technology? It was kind of weird.
Oh.
Unless
She's showing Thanos' face on like a photon, like a light, blue light hologram. She downgraded. There's a new Hulkbuster suit. I think it's new. I haven't compared visually, but it looks a little different than what I remember. And the big question now is who's going to die? Who do you think's going to die?
I don't like any of this because like you see Vision on the ground in one scene in a trailer, and then you see Doctor Strange with needles all over his body. I'm like, well, and then you see Iron Man with his suit ripped off, and then you see Thor with his head being squished, and I'm like, oh my goodness, man,
everybody's gonna die.
I see Captain America holding back a punch from Thanos.
That could kill him. So I guess all the Avengers are gonna die.
Well,
do you think Thor can die?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, Odin died, right? So
yeah, but he was weird.
Yeah, so some people I think are gonna die just for the sake of making a dramatic story, and the big question is, who?
Like, I really, 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 really hope like Rocket doesn't die, and anybody from
just Rocket.
That's all you care about.
Like Guardians of the Galaxy, like they look like in a couple scenes that they encounter Thanos, and what are they gonna do? What is Star-Lord gonna do? Gamora is really
shoot his guns.
Yeah, I mean, like run away, be a distraction.
Well, he does run on top of Doctor Strange's hologram circles or his magic circles. So he is running.
I don't know.
And shooting his
it's
guns.
gonna be weird. I'm really excited that. Well, first off, I'm excited it comes out next month, and
yes.
So I mean, that's the news segment about the new trailer of the Avengers. So. How about you, Angela? Do you have anything to add to our news segment?
Yeah, I've got something interesting that I saw on Twitter that's a little bit of speculation, but it's legit from what I've checked out, that James Gunn and Mark Hamill apparently have gone back and forth about the possibility of Hamill being in Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
What?
I know. Like, okay,
That's awesome.
So I took a screenshot of this so that way I wouldn't forget. Just apparently some random Twitter user tagged James Gunn and Mark Hamill in a post and said, "Hey, James Gunn, could you do me a huge favor and find a role for Mark Hamill in Guardians 3? The awesomeness of it might end me, but I'm willing to risk it. Thanks."
Might end me.
Yeah. And then James Gunn actually replies and says, "I think Hamill lives around the corner from me in Malibu, so he can just come over and we can talk about it over a cup of coffee." And then Hamill replies back, "I would be happy to do so, both as a good neighbor and an unemployed actor. All the best."
Oh my gosh.
And they're like, "Let's do it." So, oh man,
Wow.
I pretty much fangirled when I saw this, and I had to double check,
That
like,
would
is
be-
this legit? And yeah, it was their actual accounts going back and forth. So
There's a lot of possibilities because in the Marvel universe, there's a lot of characters that are very powerful and have been around for like almost forever. I just learned. Look at this. This might blow your mind because you didn't know it. A few weeks ago, I just learned that the Collector is older than Ego, and
Right.
and not only the Collector but also the Grandmaster from Ragnarok. So
Really?
the Grandmaster and the Collector are, I forget what they're called, like ancients or elders. I think they're called elders. And so they've been around like since the beginning. They're one of the very first sentient races in the galaxy
That's
or in the
crazy.
universe. Yeah, and so they're older than Ego. They have been around for almost forever, seen everything. And the Collector, basically his little bio is that he got bored of being like so powerful and being so old, and so he started collecting stuff.
oh my gosh.
And that's his little side hobby, his retirement. We got Infinity Wars coming up next month. and a possibility of Hamill being in Guardians of the Galaxy. That would be pretty awesome.
Woo.
So let's talk about Star Wars.
Oh man.
Yeah, speaking of Hamill, let's talk about Star Wars.
Yeah, nice transition.
Nice segue.
We are professionals.
I know, right? Look at us.
Well, let's do women first. So, Angela, why don't you start with your awesome list of things you hate so much about Star Wars?
Oh my goodness.
I'm ready. I've got my seatbelt on.
I wrote down 10 things. Let's talk about what I put down for 4 of them. Hayden Christensen's performance. I have issues with it. A lot of them, apparently. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just, can you be any more of a boring and bland, cliched character? I mean,
so dramatic.
I know. It's just.
It's like dry dramatic, though. It's not dramatic like you're getting emotionally invested. It's just like, he's trying. He will try.
You underestimate my power. I can't deal with it.
So emo. He's so emo.
I mean, I know part of it has to be the directors and of course the script writers. I'm sure they gave him a direction. Maybe the Jedi aren't supposed to be too emotional.
And he's very emotional.
But
he's distraught with these new emotions he doesn't know how to handle.
Yeah, it's just he makes him seem so lifeless or just like a puppet or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then he has a couple of cringy smiles in the movie.
Yeah, I just can't believe that someone like him is Darth Vader. Like someone that whiny, childish is Vader. That
runs in the family.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. What do you guys think? Am I too harsh on this?
No, I mean, like when I first watched it when I was younger, I didn't really care. But as I got older, I was just like, no. And then like he does a couple cringy smiles. I'm like, why? You're not that intimidating, guy. You're just like, you have daddy issues. You have issues. Like, not daddy issues, but you have issues.
Well, for him, daddy issues would be force issues.
Oh, man.
Get it?
You're so funny.
You don't have a daddy. Okay, moving on.
I don't know. Why can't stormtroopers hit the broadside of a barn?
Well, back in Obi-Wan's day when he was a general in the war, Clone Wars, and before, stormtroopers were the good guys, and they were decent. Then something changed. We don't know what. You remember the aliens on Tatooine that basically travel in that huge train truck thing, and they gathered up the droids.
Yeah.
Well, that place that ship, whatever that vehicle, gets struck down by stormtroopers, and Obi-Wan's like, they're so accurate. Only a stormtrooper is capable of this accuracy or something. Like, wait, what?
Right.
Yeah.
You think they'd invest in better training for them or something, like some target practice? I feel like they just put some blasters in their hands and they're like, go out. Good luck.
Here you go, guys. We got enough of you. You're all expendable.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh my gosh.
You human shields. Well, they did spend, umpteen jillion dollars on the Death Star, so they're probably low on budget at that point.
Probably. Oh my gosh.
Can't afford training
cuts.
or accurate weapons.
I really hate the prequel's reliance on CGI, especially since it's not good anymore. Awful
Episode
now.
1 was it 2000 or 2001 when it came out?
I think 2001.
Yeah, I mean CGI for full on CGI for movies is still pretty fresh. I remember when Godzilla came out, I think in 2000. That was the first big time 3D animated character, and the compositing, and that was just revolutionary at the time. And so this was awesome at the time, but you're right, it hasn't aged well. And you're right, they did rely on it way too much. Mm-hmm. Whole sets, entire sets, or CGI.
Yeah,
it's just too much.
I'm just not a fan of that.
I mean, I think there some CGI in episode 4.
When I think of the old movies of CGI, I think of the CGI that they added in the late 90s, where they added the Millennium Falcon and they added, aliens walking through the Tatooine city that wasn't there originally, but they added CGI stuff on top of it. That's what I think of, but I don't remember the original.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure somewhere on YouTube you can do a comparison.
Oh, I've seen those videos. It's something else. Just add random CGI creatures in the background for no reason.
They erased Anakin's eyebrows when he's dead on the Death Star. Why did they erase eyebrows? They added a wrinkle hair. It's what?
I mean, I guess if he's supposed to be burnt to a crisp body, he shouldn't have hair on his head. But,
see, okay, I'll buy that. All right, what else? What else ruffles your feathers?
All the unnecessary political talk throughout the series. Does anybody really care about that? Because I know I didn't ever. I mean, normally I'm not that kind of person that's like, get to the fights. We don't want to hear any talking. Like, I'm not that person, but come on. The political talk is just so dry, and it's just, it's awful.
Yeah, a lot of it.
How about the fact that, the whole series is basically a big merchandise-driven franchise,
money,
especially at this point.
Yeah, man, when episode 7 was announced and was official and about to come out, like, there was so much product placement. Not product placement, I'm sorry. There's so much Star Wars branding on random crap. I literally saw black gloves. I saw gloves that said Kylo Ren on them.
Really? That's bad.
Just like, why?
That's sad.
Black, knit, somewhat cold weathered gloves to wear. Not even nice gloves. With Kylo Ren in red Star Wars font on top of the palm. Just on the top of the hand. I'm just like, why Star Wars?
Oh my gosh.
That's odd.
Really sad.
Everything was Star Wars.
And they're probably going to keep pumping out one movie a year for as long as they can. And of course, with the
making out that money.
Watch them get all the way through and restart everything. Episode 4.
We're going to reboot it all. Oh my gosh. I really hope not.
In the back of my mind, I kind of see that happen. I see Avengers getting rebooted in about 10 years.
No.
Or less. Star Wars is probably inevitable because it's such a big moneymaker and such good characters. Like, it's probably going to get a redo.
I'm going to.
No.
Well, Nate, why don't you voice your complaints about the Star Wars universe?
So I had the privilege of watching all of them. I watched the originals on VHS, and then we moved to DVD, and then now, a couple birthdays ago, I was able to buy myself the entire trilogy on Blu-ray.
Awesome.
And then they go ahead and announce episode 7, and I'm like, but I spent all my money on the first trilogy. Dang it.
Yeah. That's why I haven't bought any of them.
And I guess I can start number 1. I didn't like a lot of the CGI. I'm going to touch base and echo a lot about like what Angela was saying. The CGI, it was kind of weird. And a lot of it, like the droids kind of look weird. Because I had seen pictures and, you see some of the droid pictures that were on set from like episode 4, 5, and 6. And then you see 1, 2, and 3, and the droids look very CGI. And they gave them a personality and they are moving fluid, and it's not so much robotic, or a puppet, but
just a visual of it.
Yeah, it was cool, and it was definitely helped expand the story. Now I can see why something like the CGI that they did to expand such a wide variety of a story. But there was just stuff that was hard to watch even growing up. I'm like, but why they do that? And why would they make it look like that? And just, I don't know, the list went on. I wish somebody like Liam Neeson's role, I did not like how we only had him half a movie. The lightsaber duel between him and Darth Maul was very cool though.
Yeah.
That will always be one of probably my favorite scenes, of at least the dueling part. I did not like that he died, and then, I guess at that time, Obi-Wan was a Padawan, like a training, and he killed Darth Maul. I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. And
or did he?
Yeah. And I just didn't like how we had to kill somebody, and then he got mad and killed him. But, as we move on to episode 2, I think that's when they introduced Jar Jar, right? Or is it episode 1?
No, he's in 1.
Yeah, okay. Now, I like Jar Jar.
What?
As
I'm deleting
his voice. It sounds cool. His voice sounds fun. But his personality, I feel like they, if you go back to the original 4, 5, and 6, it was really trying to reach kind of anybody and everybody like Disney does. They're more for entertainment, not so much for kids. And so then when episode 1 came out, they introduced Jar Jar because we're going to interact with children.
Children.
And it was not so...
Children ruin everything.
It was not so... I don't know. It wasn't so much that I hated the way he looked or the way he sounded. It was his personality and what he'd said. And I'm just like, man, you're funny to laugh at, but you're not genuinely... the words coming out of your mouth aren't that funny. Yeah. And...
he was unnecessary. Let's just face it.
Yeah, I get, I guess, why we would want to interact with children and make it more lighthearted and be funny. And I guess he's kind of the humor if CP3O and R2 aren't there.
Yeah, comic relief.
And I don't know, they did that in Rogue One with K2SO. And
he was better. He just wanted to kill everyone.
But then we moved to like 3, and there was just cringy scenes. Like I'm doing a lot of echoing here from Angela. Like I don't know, it just felt really forced. Like I mean, I've seen other movies and interviews that he's been in, and he talks normal. Like he's a normal human being, and he's talking. And then he gets in the movie. He's like, "You underestimate," and it's real choppy, bro, real robotic and real forced. And I don't know if he was uncomfortable playing the role like a bad guy, but then Padme, her role, and I'm sure we all can kind of agree that the two of the roles that they played was a big footprint for the movie. But I don't know, like whoever was their acting coach just did not do a good job. Like I don't know. I mean, I've seen them both in other movies, and they did really good. And I don't know, Star Wars. They may have been young, maybe a new role, maybe they got scared or intimidated, but it just felt forced and cheesy in some areas. And like I don't know, it just the back and forth felt cheesy. And then when Anakin changes from light to dark, she gets real weepy and she's like, "You're scaring me." I'm like, "Stop!"
You're breaking
like
my heart.
And so
and my trachea from choking me. Sorry.
And I mean, that's the second trilogy. I guess you can call 1, 2, 3 the second trilogy. In the original, I just didn't understand. Like in number 3 to 4, you understand who Luke and Leia are. But my thing is in episode at least 4 or in episode 3, why didn't they take time to really dive into who Luke and Leia really became as people? Because we don't really interact with them until maybe their late teens, early 20s. I don't really know how old they are. And
in New Hope, they're like 20 something.
And you have to assume you have to assume all of a sudden she's a princess. Like how'd she become a princess? And there's always these backstories. And like,
always.
And like Luke, what did he do? And you hear a little bit of his past when he's talking in episode 4 and with his family and stuff. But it would have been nice to have a little bit more screen, explain why and where and what they've been doing.
It's a new movie for Disney.
A big gap from from being born to being 20s. There's a lot of history there.
I just didn't. I mean, I get the reason that everybody went into hiding because of Anakin, being Darth and Palpatine, Dark Sidious wanting to take over the galaxy. But I just didn't understand why it had to be so deceiving in some ways. But then I understand. But even moving forward into episode 4, you see Luke and you see old Obi-Wan, reunite. And he was just, he was all around, he was beating around the truth, basically, of like, I knew your father. And he really just kind of was beating around the bush. And then I'm surprised.
Like he died.
Yeah.
What?
Then he dies and Luke finds out. And now he really can't be mad at him. And once Luke finds out the truth and once Luke finds out everything, Obi-Wan's already gone, and he dies so quick in the episode 4. There's not really this back and forth, weird. Like, how dare you? You lied to me. You should have told me. He's already dead, so, you really can't be mad at a dead person. You could be irritated and mad, but it's not going to do much. And
Force Ghost.
And see, that's when Obi-Wan comes as this Force Ghost in the voice in his head and starts guiding him. It's like, hey, I know I messed up, but here, I'm going to help you.
JK.
And so, you move on. And then all of a sudden, Luke goes from this country, I guess you could call it a country boy in Star Wars, living out in a farm, desert area, to now he's this established after hanging out with Yoda. But then, from 4 to 5, he's like very distinguished and even looks older. And I'm like, man, how long were you actually, like, they didn't explain how long he was actually with Yoda, did they? And he just all of a sudden I don't know, it's weird to watch people, become force sensitive. They go from like this freshman in high school and then they get force sensitive and then they're, the jock senior all of a sudden. They they know how to do everything. I like Ian McGregor, the guy that plays Obi-Wan. I like his role. I like
he's great.
The guy that plays the older Obi-Wan. I forgot his name.
Alec Guinness.
Or something. Yeah, Alec Guinness. And so there's a lot of like cringy roles, but then there's a lot of like, ooh, that's good. I'm, like what Angela was saying, 1, 2, 3, there's a lot of the council. It's like, well, like you guys don't really do anything. You're just very opinionated. And that's about all they do is just be very opinionated in how they don't like stuff and how dare you, you shouldn't move forward and we're going to keep you here. And I really want to say the council's the reason Anakin's Darth Vader.
Yeah, well, I think I kind of like that. Those are the problems of the Jedi Council. They've come from a great past to something that's not corrupted, but it's just like slowed down and bogged down by rules and traditions. And, who says what and what should we do? Well, we can't do this because this will happen. It's like, they've got issues and the Jedi need to end. And you're right. I think they are somewhat responsible for the issues that led up to Anakin being Darth Vader.
I mean,
that's why Luke isolated himself to begin with in episode 8.
I believe Obi-Wan did the best he could to train Anakin, but at the same time, Obi-Wan didn't want to ruffle feathers with the council, so he was trying to play both ends. He was like, okay, this is what the council said, but here's what we're going to do. But you shouldn't be doing this.
Obi-Wan's
But it's it's kind of weird. Like the council would tell Obi-Wan no, then he'd say Anakin no, but this time is reasonable. So go ahead. And then it was like, okay, we shouldn't have done that, but that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
well, let's face it, Anakin was a rowdy Padawan. He was a handful. Yeah. Have you seen Clone Wars? He's a lot to take care of.
Yeah, I haven't seen Clone Wars. I need to sit down and just start.
It's pretty cool.
I might sit down and start watching it before Netflix takes it off.
You should. I want to finish it just so I can watch Rebels, because Rebels seems like it's got some really intense stuff in it.
Yeah, I've heard good things about both. That they really set up the story, and and back to what I was saying, where there's a lot of backstory they didn't explain. Now that we're having to go to a cartoon and really understand what's happening in the cartoons, to understand what's happening between almost each episode. It seems like. I thought we were done. I thought we were done with him, and then they introduced Adam Driver. I was like, "Oh God." Here we go. It's like the nephew is just
whiny Skywalker.
It's like like the nephew. He's the nephew of Anakin, and he's just as awkward. It's like he has the same issues.
A little bit better, in my opinion, but
not as cringy until episode. He wasn't as cringy in any really. I mean, he had issues like some major anger issues, but he really wasn't as cringy until he took his shirt off. And then I was like, well, never mind. You're actually cringy, dude. And I was like, never mind. Your boxy bodies. So, that's really my dislikes of Star Wars, even though I love Star Wars. I think there's something wrong with me, probably.
You feel awful and ashamed of yourself now.
Yeah, I do. I'm sad. I feel really bad for all the people. I'm like, I love Star Wars. And then they hear this podcast. They're like, do you? And I'm like, you sound like you got some issues about it. But
what kind of fan are you?
I think all the serious fans of Star Wars by now have collected things that they don't like about it too. They just maybe haven't thought about it clearly, like we were listing them. Maybe they haven't talked about it, but I think all serious fans have some issues that they've picked up along the way. I mean, it's been 30 plus years of Star Wars.
I mean, this is the type of episode that I would be more than happy and willing to hear people's feedback. Like if I'm wrong or if I'm correct, or you were onto something but you didn't finish it, so let us know. Like I know there's more. We got more to talk about here, but I would love to hear opinions. Yeah,
so find one of our social media outlets like Facebook or YouTube, and leave a comment of something that you agree with or don't agree with, or we'd really love to hear what are some of your issues that you've realized or thought about that you don't like about Star Wars. So just let us know.
Or anything. I mean, we have several podcasts out here, so it doesn't have to be about this one.
But we'd love to hear from you guys on any of our episodes about what you thought about it, and love to hear back from y'all.
I'm really curious to see what Daniel has to say. And even though mine was long-winded, I know Daniel's is going to be like, oh yeah. So what about you, Daniel? What's your
just like that
thoughts, opinions, and list that you got going on for Star Wars?
I got a few. Got a few things that I've picked up on over the years of reading books and listening and watching movies that just like, hold on a second. It just does not quite make sense. So the first thing that I've always complained about is the fact that aliens have a first and a last name. Come on, guys. Really? Like almost every alien that you come across, doesn't matter how far away they are in the galaxy, how obscure an alien, how unhuman the alien is, they still have a first and a last name.
You are a super nerd.
It's getting kind of old.
I didn't know that.
You never thought about that?
No, I didn't think it. Well, now you done ruined it for me.
I haven't really, but
now
I guess
you will.
It's kind of silly.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
but go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Keeping
I was just
track
like,
of
what?
everyone. I don't know.
So aliens having a first and a last name very consistently is a little annoying. It's a very earthy, 21st century human kind of thing. So I understand it from a storytelling point and from, delivering a movie to mass quantities of people in America and around the world makes sense. But really, if you're going to be a thorough sci-fi, you got to be a little more creative. Who knows? Maybe aliens don't even have names. Maybe aliens have super long names that we can't even pronounce. Whatever. I'll just leave that there. Next thing is artificial intelligence is such a huge part of the Star Wars universe with all the droids, but it's never really tackled or touched upon in any of the stories that I've come across. There is one book that mentions a droid uprising, but it's a really bad book that I don't like, so I'm just going to ignore that. But AI is a really big deal in sci-fi, right? There are entire movies, books, and there's whole franchises dedicated to the fact that artificial intelligence is scary as heck or very powerful and awesome. You can go good or bad. But Star Wars, it's just there. Droids are totally self-sufficient. They're totally independent. Some of them have humor, personality. They can make moral decisions. But we're never going to really talk about it.
Well, I guess
that's weird to me.
It's been a thing just for so long in the Star Wars universe where it's not even special enough to even talk about anymore.
Yeah.
Or it's old news.
They're just used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. It could be that because droids have been around for at least 2,000 or 3,000 years, as far as I know in the Star Wars world. Yeah. Even back in the Old Republic, they had droids that would help them with stuff, and they are AI. So yeah, there's that. But no one's ever like, oh, I don't trust this robot because they can make a bad decision, or maybe their programming's wrong. Never really comes up much. So as a sci-fi nerd, as in general, that consumes all kinds of sci-fi. It just kind of struck me as odd that Star Wars never touched on that AI subject. Next is, with all the traveling they do around space to various distant planets and sections of the galaxy, why is time dilation never an issue? In case you're a little rusty, time dilation has to do with the theory of relativity. Basically, if I travel the exact same speed, if I travel the speed of light somewhere to a distant planet, it may take me 4 years to get to the planet, and then I come back, well, maybe 40 years or some extra amount of time has passed on Earth because I'm traveling so fast. Time actually passes at a different speed outside of my realm where I'm traveling. So that's time dilation. So if I go to the edge of the galaxy and come back to where I started, that might take me 10 years, say, at super high velocity. I come back, maybe 1,000 years has passed. That never happens in Star Wars. There's so much travel, but no time dilation.
There's a simple explanation for that. The movies wouldn't be able to exist if that was a thing.
Yes, the story demands it. Yeah. Maybe you can say they've got some kind of crazy hyperdrive that doesn't allow time dilation, but that just doesn't make sense.
Or there's no time in Star Wars.
Oh my gosh. Paradox.
I'm sorry.
Dun, dun.
Go ahead.
That's a theory, yes. All right. Next thing that annoys me, and this is something we have joked about before, is that the power of the Force is never used in ways that I would use it in combat or even in everyday life.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
For instance, let's say you're facing off with a Sith Lord. It's life or death. You got to kill this guy, or he's going to kill your whole city or your family, whatever, or you. You got to take him down, right? Whatever it takes to take this guy down. Why don't you use the Force to manipulate his switch on his lightsaber, turn it on while it's still in his belt, slice off his leg? Just for example. Never happens. Why don't you use the Force? Hey, you know what? Like I said, you got to do what you got to do. And we're accustomed to limb loss in Star Wars. It's just a popular theme.
At least the hand.
Yeah, so many people have lost hands and other body parts. Another example, you could use the Force to, say, pinch their jugular and shut off the blood flow to their brain. Death in about a minute.
That's true. Why didn't Vader ever just force choke everyone to death and be done with it?
I had that same thought. Isn't metal something that you saw Yoda move? Couldn't we just pick up Vader and throw him?
Well, he can move anything. Well, the only argument against that is the weight of someone, but more the force of that person you're trying to move. They can fight back. So you see Anakin and Obi-Wan force pushing each other in I think episode 3, and they're struggling, and then boom, they fly back. So you can resist the force if you're strong.
Do you think Vader has to keep a certain force field around himself because he's metal?
Yeah, so he can't get thrown around.
I mean, because I could force at his box and turn off all the switches and be like, "Oh, good night, goodbye."
Oh, sorry, that red switch. Oh, that was your lungs. Oh my gosh. It's off now.
I mean,
play with the switches on Vader's chest. Come on.
Oh boy.
See what they do.
What's this button do? What's this button do? What's that switch do?
Now the ultimatum, the final finale of these Force techniques is a trick I like to call the Force poop.
Oh.
Now, this is basically where you use the Force to contract someone's bowels in the middle of battle.
Oh, no.
And they are equally humiliated as well as immobilized. That's it. They're done.
You make it sound like not just pooping. You make it sound like some forced diarrhea. Like, ugh.
Oh, well. Depends on what kind of pork tacos they ate that morning.
Oh, no.
Oh, my gosh.
That's awful.
You could really make a mess with the force if you know where to push it.
Oh, no.
What have you done?
Talk about force push.
Force push. The force poop.
I'm just glad I got that out of my system.
Oh,
All right.
No.
like,
Why?
that'd be the worst.
Yeah. Oh, Lord. Moving on. Okay. I think that's all we need to say about that.
Oh my gosh. No wonder they all wear brown pants.
Ew.
Be a little more creative with your force use, guys. Come on. All right, next is in Return of the Jedi, Leia describes her mother as being kind and gentle and some other things. How would she know?
Wait,
She died giving birth to her. So there's a little bit of inconsistency there.
Huh.
I mean, sure, Leia could have received like information about her mother from General Organa, but I don't know, it just seems a little odd.
But did Leia know that she was adopted? And does she assume
Good
that
question.
the lady that's holding her as a baby at the end of, I think, 3, does she think that's her mom?
Oh, I didn't think about that. She could be thinking about Miss Organa, her adoptive mother.
Huh.
Yeah, it makes me,
Could be.
because I don't know, because remember how Leia and Luke
I need to watch that scene.
Leia and Luke have like the aha moment when they realize that Vader's their father.
Conveniently after they've kissed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to watch that scene of Return of the Jedi to see what the context is. If she knows at that point that she's adopted and that her mother is someone else, or if she thinks it's Miss Organa or whatever. I don't know. Next thing is when C-3PO and R2-D2 escape the Tantive 4 in New Hope, they shoot out the little soda can escape pod. The Imperials don't shoot it down. They're like, oh, there's no life on board. Well, then why would it be sent down? Data could be on that escape pod. Droids could be another non-life form thing on this the escape pod.
Yeah.
Well, no, they just let it land, and voila, we've got the entire trilogy. They didn't scan very thoroughly. Last thing is, why in the world would well-meaning parents in the Star Wars universe give up their infant to the Jedi training, whatever, and never see their kid again, know that their children's never going to bear children and give them grandchildren, and they're pretty much not going to be their parent anymore? Like, who gives their kid up? All the little babies. You have to start Jedi training at like age 2 or 3.
Maybe they're like raised parents and that they're just like drunkards and they really couldn't care less.
It's the orphan program.
It must be the orphanage on Coruscant that just takes in kids that nobody wants. That's the only way. I don't know. It's an assumption they never address. Like, where are these children coming from?
Makes you think, like, why haven't they done that to like Broomstick Boy? An episode.
Well, they don't know about him.
Yeah.
He's a prime example. Although technically, according to the stupid Jedi Council rules, he's too old. Like Anakin.
Yeah.
Too old. Like what?
That's true.
He's force sensitive.
I didn't think about that.
But he's too old. The Jedi Council doesn't exist, and they didn't know about him. So Broom Boy gets by.
Poor Broom Boy.
Yeah, poor guy. He'll come back as a supervillain in episode 10.
Oh no, please no.
The Rebel Alliance saved the animals that gave me a living, but they didn't save us. Destroy all the good guys.
The Force has a weird way of picking people.
Yeah, it's not that great. Needs to get its act together.
No, it's just how many midichlorians you have in you.
Yeah. Oh, can I add that as my last complaint? I didn't add that, but midichlorian. The introduction of the idea of midichlorians ruined the magic of the Force. The Force is like the hugest tie-in that makes all the Star Wars universe unique. It makes everything make sense. It gives us more ideas of Jedi and Sith and blah 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 magic powers. But man, they just squandered it when they introduced, oh yeah, there's just these things inside of all living cells, but not all of them, some living cells. Why are some people not force sensitive? And is it genetic? But then how do people get it if Jedis can't have children?
Yeah.
A lot of issues.
It's like George Lucas wanted to squash every kid's dream of using the Force. No, you gotta be born with it.
Yeah, sorry. It's like predestination. You're just not chosen. Sorry.
It's so surprising how there's a lot of consistency, but there's not a lot of consistency. And I know there's different directors and different screenwriters, and I know the name.
It's a lot
Lucas
to juggle.
Yeah, I get that. I'm not in their shoes, and I'm a critic on the outside of not knowing how much work goes into actually making a movie. And
that's called an armchair critic.
Yeah,
I think.
Don't forget about the Star Wars Holiday Special. That's a movie.
Oh gosh,
no! Santa visited the other galaxy. Gave them Christmas.
I mean, I know there's inconsistency, but there's not, just because I'm not going to let that affect. I still love Star Wars, and
yes.
I think Daniel and I have talked about some EU books that are out there that I've never heard of.
Yeah, in the previous episode when I talk about audiobooks, I mentioned the Thrawn trilogy, which is awesome.
Woo!
There's some other good Star Wars books out there that I've listened to that maybe I'll do another episode about later.
How long is the Thrawn trilogy?
I don't know. I mean, on average, an audiobook is anywhere from like 9 to 14 hours per book, but it's hit or miss. Yeah. Some are shorter, some are longer.
I'll have to listen to it. Maybe we could do an episode on the Thrawn trilogy.
That'd be cool. Yeah, it's very popular. It came out like in the early 90s, so it's one of the very first EU or expanded universe books.
I think Benedict Cumberbatch is going to be a good candidate for being Thrawn.
Well, I think that about sums up this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, please find one of our social media outlets and comment on the post for this episode and let us know some of the things you hate or maybe some of the things you disagree with that we hate. That's okay. We can disagree. We can still be friends. But definitely jump on the social medias, give us some feedback, and make sure to subscribe and share the posts so that we can get the word out for this new podcast so we can get the ball rolling. Well, thank you guys for chiming in, Nate and Angela.
Hey, you all have a good one.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's been a good episode. Thank you all for listening, and join us again next week. Have a good one. We are the new age of humanity. Join us. Be one of us. Drink the Kool-Aid. We will ship it to you, FedEx.
We will ship the Kool-Aid. That's awful.
We will ascend together, brethren.
Oh my gosh.
That's a little too grandiose of a introduction invite there.
And then after Daniel says, "And we'll ship it to you. Add water and drink it." And then you hear the "Oh yeah."
Be the last thing you ever hear.
Oh boy.